while we wait for more people, we'll wait a few minutes, I'll ask this question. How many of you already have ASHP, ACPE accredited programs? How many of you are starting to develop programs, pharmacy tech programs? And how many of you have developed your program and you're going to apply for accreditation? Okay, so we have quite a mix in here. So, as I always tell, I review pharmacy residencies and pharmacy tech programs, and the only requirement of you in this session is to relax. So if you have any questions, fair game. No questions are stupid, and please feel free to ask anything. And when you go home, if you think of anything, I have my business card here, and if we run out, I'll certainly give you my email and the number at work so you can call me at a later time with any questions that you might have. Because if you're anything like I am, and we're all pharmacists or pharmacy techs, you think of the questions later. So I guess at this point, let's start, and we can refresh everybody coming in and remind them where we are. My name's Lisa Lifshin. I'm the Senior Director of Pharmacy Technician Program Accreditation and Residency Services, and I've been at ASHP a long time. I've been there for 23 years, and I've been working with the pharmacy tech programs at long and residency training programs. And just to give you a little idea of how far we've really come in this area, when I first got to ASHP, the directories were paper. We put non-accredited programs in there and accredited programs in there because we only had 44 accredited programs. It was all voluntary, which for the most part right now it's a lot of voluntary programs. And I would cold call programs. They didn't hang up on me like when you see your number in there, but I would cold call the programs that weren't accredited and discuss the merits of accreditation for medication safety and a variety of other things, and hope that they would join the group of accredited programs and look at the peer review process as a positive one. And we've certainly come far. In our next session at 2 o'clock with Pete Vlassis, who's the Executive Director of ACPE, and myself will be doing a program really talking about the new standards that I hope a lot of you will stay for that as well. But right now I'm going to talk about, and I think this presentation will be helpful to all of the participants in this group, those of you that already have programs, those of you that have started programs and are seeking accreditation now, and those of you that just want to learn about how to start a program. A lot of this is going to be how to navigate our website and what's there, because that's a lot of it. We're at a transition point because as of January 1st, it's a big new year for us. A new standard's coming into effect. A new way to look at technician education and training is coming into effect, and I think you're going to like it. And I think most of you, because you're interested, know what's coming into play. We are now going to go into a different way of having levels, where we have an entry-level pharmacy technician training program and the advanced level. So it's going to give programs more opportunities to get into the accredited process and more of a quality assurance process for programs that couldn't be accredited before, and certainly produce a pharmacy technician and be reviewed and have a safe program that just couldn't do it before. They didn't have all the resources and teach all of the things that were for the other standard. So on that note, let's get started. So that's me. You know who I am already. You've had that opportunity. So just to give you a little more background, ASHP's been accrediting programs. Really, we started the process of really looking at the standards in the 70s, but the first program was accredited in 1983 at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And for some trivia, the first residency was also accredited there. And I worked there as a student too. And Pete was there as a resident, worked there too. So you have all the great things and the Super Bowl champions, who won't be the Super Bowl champions this year. So, you know, there you have it. And time flashed by. As you know, I think really a lot, as we fast forward in the pages of time of pharmacy, most of the real activity has happened in this past decade for pharmacy technician education and training and accreditation. In 2012, NABP requested for ACPE to really look at this and to participate in pharmacy technician education and training accreditation. So they looked at it, Pete took a look at it and his staff and really decided, well, it was already happening. You know, we had been doing this for a long time, but I think that the persona was people on the outside thought it was a hospital pharmacy accreditation because we were known as the American Society of Hospital Pharmacists and then Health System and then ASHP. So the real advertising and marketing on the outside couldn't really grasp it. And we really wanted to look at capturing the masses, capturing the boards of pharmacy, getting everybody involved and under the tent. So in the past, we would review our programs with the residencies, and we had the Commission on Credentialing, and they were responsible for the quality of pharmacy residency training and pharmacy technician accreditation. To be honest, there wasn't much happening on that level for the pharmacy technician training and education programs. But in 2013, the Pharmacy Technician Accreditation Commission was formed through a collaboration of ASHP and ACPE. So now we're together. We're together in this mission to really push forward the accreditation of pharmacy technician education and training. So we at ASHP had already developed standards and guidelines and procedures for this new group, and the ACPE board approved that. So everything we do through the PTAC goes through both of those boards. So each time the PTAC meets in May and October respectively, things go through those boards as well. So there's a lot of ayes that happens, a lot of approvals. So these approvals, as I had mentioned, go through both boards. And the first official meeting that we had was in May of 2015, and the approvals went through the June board meetings for both ASHP and ACPE. There are about 250 and growing. We contract and we grow of ASHP, ACPE accredited programs. We used to have, I'm all for disclosure, we used to have a lot more. We had a lot of the programs that, we had many more programs, but a lot of them were with the corporate programs that were closed down, unfortunately, by the Department of Education, and we had a lot with them, and it's unfortunate because they got to be pretty good programs, but the schools themselves were closed. And we've gotten some more back to replace those numbers. As we discuss further, we have some other interesting programs that aren't necessarily higher in numbers, but training more students, and the distance learning programs are starting to get into the framework of the accredited programs, and we have several of them. And Career Step, we have a representative from there is one of them, and a few others. So the creativeness due to technology and the student mix out there for their savviness to be able to utilize technology and creativeness out there for instructors has provided opportunities for different avenues for training the pharmacy technician. So our numbers might not be growing as high, but the number of graduates is growing rapidly. So I'm going to go through the 10 steps, key steps to accreditation. And I also wanted to mention Eric Grace is with us today, and he's our standards, or I call him our director of education guy, because he's a jack of many trades, and he's developed this presentation and has worked a lot on this website with me and putting together a lot of these things. So during this presentation, we're going to go through utilizing the website, knowing the standards, looking at the education and training program itself, applying for accreditation and reaccreditation, preparing for the accreditation site survey, what happens during the survey, the actual site survey reports and review, preparing a site response, a little more about the PTAC and who's on it, and accreditation status. And also with that, have some time for some question and answers, because I think that's more important than a lot of this stuff right now, because you'll go back again when you go home and look at this. So utilizing the website. That's probably the most confusing thing at first if you don't look at this now. So many of you, I guess really to even come to this meeting, have looked at this website. You look at it at first, and I think it gets confusing, and you look at it and say, okay, where is the pharmacy technician section? The first thing to remember is to look at the menu. Go to the right-hand corner and click on menu. Once you hit there, go to professional development. We tried to unbury it as much as possible. So if you can remember the professional development, go to there. You can also go back and in the search, the magnifying glass, you can put in pharmacy technician accreditation and look for it there as well. But since you're here, you know the different routes. After you go to professional development, you can see there's technician program accreditation, and that's where everything is. So that's the front page. It describes what accreditation is, the mission of it. And in this, there's a variety of squares. And these squares are your pathways to knowing everything and everywhere that you have to go to get everything for technician training and education accreditation. So the first thing, in no specific order, I put the directory in the first thing you'd really go to on the left because that's where all the students are going to look for things. And once you have your program, or if you've had one, please make sure and keep up to date in updating your program. This month, for those of you that have residency training programs as well, we have, I think, gotten into the 21st century, and you can now update your pages. So please do that often. The only thing you can't update is the program director information. You still have to send that in to us, and your administration information. But you can still send that to asd@ashp.org. But anything in your description, you can change that. We're also working with our IT department to now get it ready for the entry and advanced level. That's taking us a while because, believe it or not, I'm learning, and I think those of you that are techie, things that you think are really easy to change, they're not easy. So we've been meeting every week to see how we can get everything to look nice and to be able to, for those that are going to have entry programs and advanced, how we're going to make that look on your web page. Those are just going to have entry, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like those of you that are from my era, it's like looking at a Rubik's Cube and looking at the different directions and then it turns another way. So we're working with that. So going into this is the first page you'll look into. The new standards are up. Those of you that have applied before January 1st can be reviewed under the old standard. I don't recommend it. I will convince you if you applied before now to be reviewed against the new standard. While you can be reviewed against the previous, as I'll call it, you're going to have to assess yourself anyway within the first 6 months of 2019 on how you're going to declare yourself. And then we're going to have a group within the PTAC to review all of the crosswalks that you're going to fill out to see where you really fall. Are you entry, advanced? If you have 2 programs, which one's entry, which is advanced? And we're going to have an extensive process to review that. So we will do a lot of education with the programs. Your survey team will certainly be very helpful and will be very educational and coaching for those first go-arounds. So it'll be a benefit to you to be reviewed under the new standards. And they're on that page, as well as the regulations. We'll talk about these more later, but the guidance documents are great. I'll again go into them more. The new ones are coming up soon before the end of the year for the new standards. They're sort of the teacher's edition. They explain what the surveyors are looking at on survey for each of the elements. Now it's going to be called key elements before the standards. Again, we'll go through that. And I've gotten a lot of phone calls, and Eric just put up, hot off the presses this week, the new model curriculum for the new standard. They went up last week. And again, it takes you to directory. There's some FAQs, some for the most commonly asked questions regarding the new standard on here as well. Again, the implementation guideline, like I had just mentioned, January 1st, that's when the new one goes live. and the existing programs have until next year. You have until next year to get your program into that new standard. We realize that especially those of you in community colleges and other teaching modalities, it takes a while to change a curriculum. So you've known this has been coming. It's been about 1.5 years since we started this process. It's been the fastest standard to get going and approved. From the standpoint of looking at residency standards too, this went really quickly. And you'll hear more about that in the next session as well. I don't think in my many, many years at ASHP I've ever seen a standard be written, gone through everybody to review it for comments and approved this quickly, especially with such a cultural change and have everyone's feedback. So I applaud all of you that have taken a look at it as well. Here's just the front page of the model curriculum. Do take a look at it. You can look at it on your phone. It's broken down into, it's a portrait type scheme, and each of the key elements, and we'll talk about that later, instead of the different areas, each of the standards are broken up into key elements, the competencies, and they each give you examples for if it applies to how you would ideas, certainly not prescriptive, for didactic training, simulation, and experiential training on what you can do for your course. So please take a look at that. And the guidance document. Again, this is the front page just to give you an idea, and at the end of the year, the new one will be up. So it clarifies how programs can meet the key elements and describes. It'll also tell you different documentation that we're looking at when we come on site for accreditation purposes. So if you use, again, you don't have to, because I know, we're in pharmacy, so we're very literal, but if you use these 2 documents, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So starting a tech program. And it's on the right-hand side of the page there. There's an Are You Ready tool. We're in January. Hopefully we'll be done it in January. We'll be finished in January. Erica and myself are going to sit down and put this together for the new standard. The tool's interactive. It's a nice tool. We're still figuring out how to make it really nice, but in the old tool, we had the standard, and then it explained it for you. So it was an interactive tool where you would see the specific standard written out or the element in the standard, and then it would explain it to you. So you were learning it basically. So for example, all organizations or institutions of higher learning, it would talk about the regulations and what you should review, and then there would be a link to the regulations. And there were a variety of different things to look at. This one might be a little different because there are a lot of key elements. So we're still figuring out how it'll work best for you. But you'll have it, and you'll have it in time to really help you assess your program. So updating an existing pharmacy tech education and training program. Again, back to the key, is it an entry or is it an advance? Those of you that have programs will be taking a look at your programs and thinking and sitting back with your advisory committee or your college administration and deciding, are you going to have both? Are you going to have a straight through? Are you just going to have entry or advanced? So the entry really prepares students at the entry level program to do entry level activities, to be able to work anywhere at the entry level for a variety of contemporary settings. So please look at the standard. When you look at the standard, you'll see different sections within each key element, and they're both listed, but certainly delineated in a very easy fashion for you to be able to see both. In the advanced level, there's a broad range of even more. So for instance, in the advanced level, one thing that I can think of easily is, basic life support. In the advanced, they have to be certified in basic life support. So that's one area that they have to do. So they have more advanced behaviors that they have to do. They also have to have 2 externships rotations in the advanced, as opposed to in the entry, they have to have 1. So we'll go more into that as well. In regards to length, the entry level is 400 hours over 8 weeks, 300 hours we define. The didactic has to be at least 120 hours, simulation at least 50, which is less than the current standard for as it is, experiential at least 130. And then you have 100 that you can do anything with of the 3. Advanced is 600 hours over 15 weeks, sort of the hours that we have now. And that includes the entry-level hours. So that's basically, if you want to look at it from a math standpoint, it's 400 hours plus 200 more. And that's 160 hours, so 120 plus 40 for the didactic, 100 being 50 plus 50, 200 being 130 plus 70. And then 140 to do whatever you would like with those hours. Another thing to explain, when I was at the P-Tech meeting, I received a lot of questions regarding this. If you have an entry-level program and you want to teach some of the, or train some of the key elements that are in the advanced level program, you can do that. Think of them as electives. You don't have to teach all of them, but if you want to, say, have basic life support and teach that, or have them take that and get certified in the entry, you can do that. Or if you want to go more extensive in investigational drugs, you can do that. And they can still graduate from an entry-level program. So it's not prescriptive that you have to, do all of them and get to advanced. If you want to pick some, it's okay, and they can still be entry. Does that make sense to everyone from that standpoint? Okay. So you'll look at Who Are You? I was going to sing the song from The Who, but I didn't think you wanted me to do that. And Pete and Eric laughed at me. I was going to put a picture up of Pete Townsend or something, but I thought if we had really young people, you wouldn't know who it was, but, it's okay. Maybe if I had the mimosas, it would be funny. I don't know. Carl's back there. He doesn't know who it is. I don't know. What can I tell you? But so applying for accreditation or reaccreditation, whether it be a new or existing program, there's a block for that as well. Guidelines for submitting a program. The actual application process, you still submit the 2-page application. The survey is the same. You still fill out the pre-survey questionnaire, which I'm going to show you. All of those things are the same. You just don't have to hand in an initial application fee. Your fees for the annual fee are automatically generated. Those types of things are different. But your first survey, what you have when you apply initially, and your 5th cycle, 6th cycle, 2nd cycle, those types of surveys are the same. It's just that you're more familiar at that point. So those are similar things. We have some guidelines, although they look pretty small up there, but you can see them on our site for application, completing the application for accreditation or reaccreditation. You have to get the signatures from your administration on there. Sometimes I know that takes a little time, and along with their email addresses and yours. The program director has to submit a completed academic and professional form, which is on our website, as well as a completed resume or CV, and then the 2-page application. You have to go through one of these courses. We'll have something online as well if you can't make it to this. We'll ask you if you've reviewed the things, when you've had a graduate, or when you started the program. There's a variety of questions on there. We can bill you, or you can send the check. You can send the check for the application fee. In 2018, it was $600. It's a little more. It goes up with inflation. I think about 5% each year. And then the annual fee is the part of the year that, like, for instance, if you apply today, you'll be charged for December, and then you'll start getting charged for next year, because the accreditation is retroactive to the date of application. So even if we review you next July, and then you find out about your accreditation next February, you're successfully accredited, the accreditation is retroactive to December 2nd. because that's when we received your application. So that's why you pay from that date. So we can either bill you or you can send the check in, but it's probably better for us to bill you than for you to do the math on that part. But you can certainly send in the check or be billed for the application fee. And you'll receive an email from us that we've received your application. And then I'll contact you to schedule your review. I'll send out a team for that. You'll have a lead surveyor that I'll come out, or we have 3 contract surveyors as well. If it's a distance learning program, generally it's Pete and myself. And the other types of programs, it's a different mix of the team too. So applying for accreditation. Here's a sample of the application. This is getting typed even as we speak at home. It's going to say initial and reaccreditation. It's also going to have entry, advanced, or both types of programs. So we'll know what you have, what you're applying for. And then preparing for the survey. And remember what I said to begin with, that one of the criteria is, not to be afraid or nervous. I always tell people as you prepare, when we get to the survey, don't be nervous. Because we've all sat on the other side too. I used to sit on the other side for residency surveys many, many years ago too. Even though you probably say, yeah, right, we're going to be nervous, it's natural, but please use it as a learning experience. So we will send you, and again, this year, I've said it for a couple years, but we're really getting there. Those that are going to be reviewed in the first parts of the year, this is still going to be a paper process, but we're really getting to the point where this is going to be automated, where the pre-survey questionnaire will be automated. I'd rather get you in the loop first. Right now, our manager of the office extraordinaire is putting the new pre-survey questionnaire into the system, and it's pretty heavy because we want to get a lot of the information in beforehand so the lead surveyors can really review it in advance and know your program well before we get there, so we can utilize that time very efficiently. And our PTAC group and lead surveyors sat down and really looked at what we'd like to see so we can be a better use to you for questions too when we're on site. So she's putting it into the system now. So right now you'll get that emailed to you. Later you'll get something sent out to you via the system to start filling it out in the database. So this is the old, whoops, whoa, okay, talk about advanced, right? This is the old pre-survey questionnaire. The style is the same. You have areas to rate yourself as fully compliant, partially compliant, non-compliant, and not applicable, but there are a lot more appendices that we're going to ask for each of the key elements. This is listed as standards. There are going to be key elements. We're also going to be asking for a crosswalk in the very beginning, where you will, the crosswalk will look like the model curriculum. With each key element, you'll place where you're teaching that key element, which course, how much time it's taking in that course, and whether it's in the didactic, simulation, or experiential, or it could be in a variety of those places. So while it'll take you a while, it should probably take you the first go-around, but it would be a great tool for you to assess yourself periodically to see where you want to make changes to your curriculum or what's working for you and what needs to be adjusted. So that's one thing we're going to be looking for. And there's a variety of other things too that we'll want as examples in this document. So I think when it's online, it'll be a lighter load for you. It'll just be a large document. And then there will still be a few things that we'll look for on site. I'm going to try to be optimistic and say by the end of the year, I'm hoping we close as of December 21st. I almost, the PTAC and the lead surveyors went through it several times. That's what I wanted that to be right. I almost prefer to have a few typos here and there and send it out and have it out for everybody. And then because I have, Matthew's going to be going through a survey April 17th, and we have one February 13th too on the new standards. So I almost like to have it a little dirty and have somebody to be able to use it and then perfect it a little more. So either the end of the year or the beginning of January. Would you be adverse if there's a few typos here and there? I don't like that, but if we have to, and then clean it up just so you can have something.
Yeah, I would rather have something to work with.
Yeah, so Goldie is working on it so she can have some quiet while we're gone on that. So hopefully we'll have it. And again, if you have questions, if something doesn't feel clear, please email me. We're closed, but I'm going to check my email periodically during the holiday break. Okay. This is stuck. Why? What did I do wrong here? Where did the guy go? Ah, here we go. So here's an example of the crosswalk I was talking about. It's more extensive, but here, you can see where Eric put in the entry level and advanced, so you'll see that broken down when you have an entry level and an advanced level where you can put in your hours. But you'll see that much clearer. That actually is on our website already. He put that on last week. So you can take a look at the full crosswalk, and it looks really nice. And the review of the standards, like I had mentioned, they look different than now. They're broken into competencies and key elements. The first section is actual competency expectations, and that's what you fill out in the crosswalk. Section 2 is the structure and process to promote the achievement of the competency expectations. And the third is the actual assessment. So the middle part's your faculty, the construct of the program. You'll see that on the next slide, and the assessments, or in the next few slides. Competency expectations, the standards within them. These are what you're used to in the goals section in the old standard and more. There's more of them than before. This really looks like the 46 goals that you're accustomed to. As you can see, we have the personal and interpersonal knowledge and skills, foundational professional knowledge and skills, processing and handling of medications and medication orders, patient care quality and safety and knowledge and skills, regulatory and compliance and knowledge and skills. Then underneath, the entry level, for instance, in the first standard, there's 8 key elements, and advanced 4 key elements. And I can't say enough how much review went into this. And we'll go into this later in the second session and a little here, there were writing groups that put this together. The PTAC worked on this, the lead surveyors, staff, and then it went out to everyone. It was posted on our website, on every pharmacy organization website to respond back. We received over 500 responses. We then went back and looked at all the comments and saw which ones were duplicated, and then we went back and put this all together. So it was really with a fine-tooth comb on what needed to be put into this. We also utilized the documents from PTCB and ACPE and looked at their I can't grab for words. Pete, what do they call it? Their
blueprint. Or
the blueprint.
Job analysis.
The job analysis, yeah. So when we put together a standard, we look at the job analysis and the blueprint, because a standard development doesn't look at practice today. We want to look at it today and 5 years from now, because a lot of these things you might look at and think, well, we don't do this in our state. We don't do this here. But this is a national standard, and you may be doing it 5 years from now. So we're preparing technicians for now and the future. And then in the structure, we're looking at authority and responsibility, the strategic plan, advisory committee, and curricular length, and you can see more details in the actual standard. Again, the structure, we talked about this before. the hour breakdown, and we'll really want to see this. We'll compare the crosswalk. This is especially important in the non-traditional structure programs, the wheel programs, when you have students coming in at different points, so we can ensure that those hours are there. Sometimes it's a little easier for us to see that in the traditional community college programs where you have the hours there, but in distance learning, we have to really look at that when, students are self-paced or using videos and the like, but we really look at all these things. Again, the curricular component I had mentioned before for entry level, there are one experiential rotation for entry level, advanced, one additional experiential rotation, the different number of key elements for each of these. Distance learning programs adhere to the same standards as non-distance learning. We get these questions at times. So a program is a program is a program, a standard is a standard is a standard. That's how we look at it. We expect for the distance learnings, we look at verification of students, what you're utilizing for that, to ensure that the student is actually the student, and the like. As well as looking at the quality of the program, assessment of standards and the key elements, assessment of competency expectation, of student learning assessments, assessing the student, as well as the program. And a lot of the program assessment really is part of your strategic plan, utilizing this information for your strategic plan, such as program completion, performance on national certification, or if you don't do that, looking at psychometrically valid evaluation of your program. If you do something different, it's probably easier to utilize performance on the national exams. Program satisfaction, sometimes we come on sites and sites might have student satisfaction data and graduate, but not employer satisfaction. So we're looking at the triage. Job placement, and assessment data for CQI to maintain that, and actual assessment of the structure and process. So what happens on the site survey? The site, you can apply, I get this question quite frequently, a site can apply for a survey the first day of classes. So your students start, you can apply. The benefit of that is, as I had mentioned, accreditation is retroactive to the date that you apply. We can come for a survey the day of graduation. So then you're in the mix. There is a time lapse, and we'll also go into this, between being scheduled. We have in the Accreditation Services Division about 2,700 programs. We have over 2,400 residency programs that get scheduled and over 250 pharmacy tech programs. So I want to get you in the mix. If there's a state that's changed a regulation, for example, Ohio has some strict guidelines now of when programs have to have their applications in, I'm going to try to push them through and get them in sync so they can get in the mix. So the earlier you can get them in, I'll start communicating with you and try to get you in on being reviewed the closest to your graduation. And we'll start the process then. Again, the billing is from that day, and your accreditation, if successful, is retroactive to the date of application. So pre-survey, then we send you the link once it's online, or we send you the link as it is now, or you'll get some type of notification when it's online that that's your pre-survey questionnaire. It's due 45 days in completion to the survey. 2 surveyors generally will come to your site. Sometimes it will be 1 if something happens. If they can't get there, somebody gets sick. Sometimes I send 1 surveyor if it's a program that has several, for instance, if it's a Ross College and they're all the same, and they might be in the same area and they've reviewed the same curriculum, and they just really have to see the lab and meet the program director and still look at the program because they could have a different lab. A program director could have a different philosophy, but if a lot of the elements are the same, I might send one person, but we'll see. But generally, most of the time, it's 2 surveyors. They'll want to meet with the following: the program site administration, the program director and instructors, a sampling of current students, a sampling of graduates. In the situation where it's the first year and we want to get you at that end of the year, it'll be the current students. If it's the last week, they will be graduating. So that's sort of that different area then. The advisory committee, they'll do an interactive paperwork program review for a couple hours with the program director and the instructors, and they'll also tour the laboratory. That day, the team will write a report. The report will just be more grammatically correct when they leave, when you get the actual report. In the future, it'll be in your personal portal. Like, everything will be there, and it'll be a living document for that cycle. So once you put in your information for the pre-survey, then you'll get your report back in there, and then you'll respond back to there. It'll be your own personal identifier. Now you'll get that report back, but you will have no surprises when you get the report back. Everything is discussed then, and you know, we're not 100% either. We get that Reader's Digest condensed version, so we discuss things. So if something doesn't seem appropriate, we're certainly amenable to listening. Sometimes we'll say, no, this is really how we see it. Sometimes we'll be like, oh, okay, we didn't see that. That's fine, we'll take that one off. But we're your allies. We want you to do well. So, you know, we're happy to discuss things. We want to see things. We want you to do well. You know, please be prepared for the survey and put your best foot forward for that, and be prepared with all your information. About 30 days after the survey, you'll get the actual report, written, whether it's online in the future or written in the written report. Your site response, you have 75 days from the survey date when the team was on site to respond back. Again, either via email on the paper, and then you send a paper report in as well, or in the new process. We'd be happy, the survey team is happy to review that beforehand, but get it in before the 75 days to your survey team, and they'll look at it and provide you some ideas. And then they go to the PTAC for review. And the reason they need more time is because the support team at ASHP compiles everything and gets all those packets together and all those many, many reports, because not only do these reports from the on-site new reviews and reaccreditations go to the PTAC meeting, your reports, your progress reports, also go to that meeting, as well as program director approvals, new program director approvals, and changing program director approvals, and anything else that's discussed at that meeting. So a lot of things happen at that meeting. And at the same time, they're getting ready for the Residency Commission meeting too. So there's all these dynamic things happening. So the PTAC, the function of the PTAC is reviewing the applications that we get for accreditation, recommending the actions to the board. So when they review these reports at the meetings, they vote, and their voted actions, or their recommendations for voted actions, go to the ASHP Board of Directors and the ACPE Board. So they're making recommendations for their votes, and then they vote to come back to you. They assist in the strategic planning and matters related to pharmacy technician accreditation. They identify potential activities and collaborative activities. For example, I think the biggest one really was in May of 17, after the stakeholders conference, was to ask both of those boards for support to write the new standard. And then that happened immediately. That was really big. And soliciting input and advice from other stakeholders for broad perspectives, for standards, for other types of activities too. This is a list of the current PTAC members, and Matthew Rewald is here. I see him here. I don't see any other members here today, but you can see the list here. There's pharmacy tech educators. Most of them are pharmacy tech educators. Some are pharmacists, some are pharmacy technicians. We also have liaisons from ACPE. The president of the ACPE board is there, as well as the president-elect from ASHP sits on the board. I'm the secretary of the group. I don't vote. We also have a public member, Michael Diamond, who is in the public health sector, and we have some really fruitful discussion from the group to look at different type of policy issues too. Contract lead surveyors, Renee Acosta is at the University of Texas College of Pharmacy. Mary McHugh is in Montana at a tech program too, besides this, and Sherry Rumel is a tech program in Wyoming. The PTAC typically meets twice a year unless we have to talk about things in the interim. We meet in May and October, and their actions go to the June and January meeting respectively, and then the actions, the letter of accreditation from those actions go out a month after generally. We also send out a tech tablet, which is a newsletter. It goes on our website in July and February with news from those meetings. The accreditation status, you find out in July and February. No program goes longer than 3 years without reporting back. So we visit every 6 if everything goes well. And even if you get full cycle accreditation, if you receive that, no program goes any longer than 3. You might get 1 year. If we want to follow up more, you may get 3 years if it's, we look at that, but no program any longer than 3. And we visit every 6. But that's the process at this point in time. And again, it's a very exciting time. We hope to see more programs. You'll find out more later. There's a lot of discussion. Pete and Janet Sylvester, the vice president from our Accreditation Services Office, they've been meeting with all of the districts from all the different NABP, the boards of pharmacy districts in the country, to talk about the importance of this, and you'll find out more about that in the next session. So it's a very hot time. This is the time that we're going to see a lot. If not now, we're not going to see it. So I'm hoping for a lot more news for next year and a lot more of you sitting here starting programs and seeking accreditation. It's a very hot time for the health system pharmacy groups to start programs. I visited Lee Memorial a couple weeks ago for their accreditation site survey, as well as Yale was accredited last year, and Duke was reviewed in the summer too, and we have a few other ones, and a couple others in the mix too, as well as our other programs that are accredited. So at this point, I'd like to entertain any questions that you have. No one wants to start? All right.
It's Mark Thomas from Cincinnati Children's. So explain to me again the basic and advanced. So are you able to have both programs accredited simultaneously?
Yes.
And can one applicant go from basic into advanced in a linear fashion?
Yes, you can have a program that's, you can offer advanced straight through. It's sort of like the old concept of the BS, the PharmD, and then going straight through to the full PharmD. You can have a program that's fully advanced. They go from the beginning to the end. You can have a program where they just stop at the entry, or you can have one where they do the entry and then pick up and finish the advanced and have the entry and then the advanced. Pete, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so I came to ACPE in the fall of 1999, and in 2000 we switched to the all PharmD. So the standards before that were exactly that, what Lisa said. They accommodated certain things were the same whether you're doing the BS or the PharmD, like the structure process things. But when you got down to like the curriculum or the experiential hours, then they were different. And there was, you could be a 5-year baccalaureate degree, you could be a 6-year entry-level PharmD, or you could have what was called the post-BS PharmD. So the same concept is being applied here for the entry-level and advanced. And just like some pharmacists chose to do the post-BS PharmD, some didn't. but they still got involved clinically by doing continuing education programs. So they learned how to immunize, they learned how to monitor diabetics. And the same thing is going to happen in the technician space, where the continuing education is going to offer some opportunities for people to get some additional credentials rather than having to go back and get an advanced training thing for the whole process. On the other hand, the advanced thing would give them competencies not in one focal area, but a bunch of areas. And then they would have more value to the employer because they could be used in different ways on different days.
Just to follow up, I guess what my question also includes the didactic portion. So would there be entry didactic hours and then advanced hours that would be a continuation on that course? So if we had both programs, we would have, we may have some difficulty distinguishing between an entry-level didactic course and advanced didactic course, I guess.
That's a good question. I think what you need to look at is the key elements that are being looked at under each of those, right? So, so if you're going to do like an advanced beginning to end, you might use your hours differently than if you're using entry level and then adding it on to get to the advanced. But the key thing is to make sure that the key elements for the entry level are met, and that in addition that the additional things for the advanced are met. And then there's flexibility in how those hours are used, because there's some wild card hours in there, so that you can figure it out to say, well, this might be the pathway for entry level. This is our pathway straight through. This is our pathway if you want to add on the advanced after you have entry level, along the way.
Try to pull up those hours. Hi.
Well, since we're on that track, just for clarity, presuming that a program initially would apply for accreditation under entry level,
right,
perhaps didn't have all the elements for advanced level, receive that initial accreditation, and then 2 years down the road, then they would have to reapply for accreditation to grant the advanced level certification.
At the present time.
Okay.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
There's this thing called substantive change. So, you get accredited for doing what you're doing that day. If you're doing something major, okay, then we would want to know about it. Now, whether they have to reapply from the beginning or do some other things, I don't know that we've really talked about that at some point in time. But there should be a pathway that would allow you to do that at another time.
Right. That was something we talked about, and we'll see how much we have.
Like when you have somebody, like you say they can go straight through, Lisa, but then like say they do the entry and then 3 months later they want to come back and do the advanced, they can just pick up and do like the 40 more hours, like you can have like a...
With the key elements associated.
Okay, otherwise, or they would go straight through where both would apply, or they can do them disjointed and then just make sure that they pick up those requirements in the advance, like an add-on type of thing, right?
If you have that offering for them, if you have
Okay.
the offering where they could stop at entry, and then you have the advanced as well, if you have the structure available for them.
Also, some programs just choose, you have to go like, they only offer a straight through type of program, you can just pick what you want. Some have separate, some have all three combinations. Okay, you can do whatever, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, okay.
That's what we're thinking will happen. We're thinking of all scenarios that'll happen. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. You may think of other questions. I imagine a lot of you will be staying for the next session because we'll address some of the other accompanying issues that go with this one. And you'll have a much more dynamic speaker for part of that as well. Thank you so much, and please feel free. I have some cards up here if you'd like to have them for later, and please feel free to contact me with questions at any time as well. And I hope to see a lot of applications from a lot of you. Certainly not on a self-serving situation for me, but for you to enhance practice for everyone. So thank you.